Laura Reynolds. Welcome to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
So excited to be here.
I want to chat about Edie. I read up about her, I got her vibe, and I love everything she stands for. She is your FMC in Priestess, which, if I remember correctly, is your debut. What can you tell us about her and her story, and just how did that book come to life?
I have such a soft spot for Edie. And I've been actually, this is a great question because because I just put out my third book in this series, and that female main character is not as likable. And I have no control over my characters. They are who they are. They're running the ship. And I loved her, and I was really worried that people would, because Edie is so everybody's bestie. She's your bestie. She gets along with everybody. If she has a problem, she won't make it your problem, and that's a problem because then she doesn't have the support system that she deserves. But I was nervous about Robbie, and I think a lot of readers are responding to Robbie's rage as they responded to Edie's kindness. And so I'm like, but I've been thinking a lot about Edie lately as this next book comes out. It came out on April 20th. So Edie is what I would call a vaudevillian, like tap dancer, because she wants you to be entertained and have a good time with her and never see all of her heartache. She wears a sunshine mask. And when I started to write Priestess, the story behind Priestess is I had a friend who was going through something difficult that I went through. And I am also an artist. And I said, I painted great stuff when I went through this. Do you have a creative outlet? She said, I always wanted to be a romance writer. And I was like, oh, and I had given up on writing for 10 years because I queried a book and nobody wanted it. It wasn't that good. I was 26. I thought I was the next great American novelist. And I said, oh, well, if you write a book, I'll write a book. And she was like, and I was like, I'm crazy. This is how my brain works. Of course. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I was like, well, who's the loudest character in my head? And it's always been Edie. And Edie's noise is not, a yell. Edie is, hi. And she's that's what she does. She just, hi. And she must be eavesdropping. She's caught eavesdropping like 6 times in Priestess. She is just so like, what are you doing? What's your favorite color? Hi, hello. And so I said, well, I'll sit down with the Priestess story and I will extrapolate more on the romance than on the fantasy, but I just can't help myself. I'd never written a fantasy before, and I love world building, and I love the nitty gritty. I go into the plumbing in Tintar. It's kind of quasi cobbled together medieval. I throw in a couple things that weren't available to medieval people, but they're very like niche. Like I think I reference matchsticks or something like that. That's how nitty gritty I get. So I write Priestess and I'm like, what do I do with this? And it just felt like I needed to put it out there. So the character, the Rowan Atkinson character, Mr. Bean.
Yes.
That is my self-publishing journey. I've just been stumbling along, making massive mistakes. People are like, well, why didn't you do this when you put it out? And I went, I don't know. People are like, how many pre-orders did you have for Priestess? And I went, 15. I thought that was a good number. I mean, honestly, it is. Because I didn't have any Instagram followers or anything. So I've just been sort of like, and that I put it out in March of 24. And that's my Edie story. Edie is just such a girl's girl. And she just really cares about other people. She's genuinely compassionate. It is also a tool. It is also a shield for her. Her compassion is, I'm going to care about you so you don't see too much of my pain. I think she resonates with a lot of people. I do copious notes for my characters. Yeah. And my number one note for her is, the ultimate girl's girl, everybody's friend. Everybody deserves an Edie. Everybody deserves an Edie friend. They do.
Lots you said there that I want to unpack. This is a conversation I had with a girlfriend of mine the other day where she was worried that she was talking about herself too much. And I said to her, I was like, have you ever thought that maybe I want the distraction where I don't want to talk about myself? Simple example, one of the side effects that you have with your cancer meds when you're out of active treatment is you deal with a lot of joint pain. I'm a relatively fit person and I've managed to hold on to a lot of my fitness during cancer, which was wonderful, but my wrists are fucked. And I don't have an injury. This is purely because of the medication thing. So even something as simple as if I do that, I am in pain. Okay. So maybe I want to talk about someone else's life just to have that little bit of a reprieve from having to actually mentally get used to this pain that I am constantly in now with my wrist. And when she heard
Yes.
it like that, she was like, "Oh." I was like, "I'm happy to talk about it if it makes you feel better," but I'm like, I would just prefer not to, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
because for me in this case, talking is not going to change anything. Usually, I am a huge advocate of talking about your feelings, but in some cases, I just don't see the point because it's going to make me feel worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why I loved Edie's vibe so much, is because I could see parts of myself in her there. You said the most relatable thing about you didn't know what you were doing when you launched. I had no fucking clue what I was doing. And I'm just like, I love that another author is saying it. I was just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I wrote a book here. That was it.
Yeah.
That was, and I was like, I didn't know that I'm supposed to do all these things. Now I know, and that's fine. And I'm
No.
fixing it and whatever.
I'm only starting to do all of the supposed to's on my third book. And even then, I looked at a lot of the things and I was like, if that's not exactly perfectly necessary, I'm not going to do it. This is expensive. This is an expensive practice. That's why I don't have hardbacks. You just pick and choose what you can do. And some of it is also an energy thing. How much energy can I give to this? I already poured my heart and soul into a manuscript. I'm the first person to admit, learn, do as I say, not as I do, because what I did was very, I'm telling you, is Mr. Bean. I'm just like,
It's some of my author friends, we talk a lot about, and they go, "Oh, the algorithms change, and it's really driving me
mm,
crazy." I'm like, fuck the algorithm. I was like, have fun creating the content, because you know what? If you can't have fun doing it, what's the point?
I have been battling the algorithm since 2015 as an artist. I've never figured it out. I don't understand it. My art account it doesn't gain, it doesn't have very much. I gave up. I was just like, you know what? I'll post when I can. Illustration contract that I had, I was under, it was like NDA. I wasn't allowed to share any of it until the book was published. I'm working like, 50-hour weeks on this thing, but I can't even, at some point, you just have to look at the algorithm and go, I give up.
Yeah,
I'm here for the practice. I'm here for the art.
I do want to turn it back a little bit to something you've briefly touched on about romantic fantasy. So, as we know, everyone is hot on the romantasy train, and I've actually just spoken to another guest about this, where we have the romantic fantasy romance, and then we have romantasy. Like, what is the definition that you prefer, and why did you decide to go that route instead of jumping onto the romantasy bandwagon?
I have a great deal of respect for romance readers. I personally believe they are holding up the publishing world with one hand. And if I ever hear anything disparaging about romance, it gets me really hot. I never want to mislead that magical group of people. And so, even though I think I had about 300 Instagram followers when I started saying I'm writing a book, and I really listened to each and every one of them, and I just said I'm worried. I think this is incredible. I write the type of romance I do write spice, and I've now finished a fifth book, and I would rate the last Gods of Tintar book 3 chili peppers, and then my new secret project book 3 chili peppers, and I'm really hitting my spice groove, and I really enjoy writing it. But Priestess, it normally gets about 1.5 to 2 chili peppers. There is on-page spice. I'm a swoon girl. I love two people in the same room, like yearning for each other and terrified to interact. That is my jam. I love that. The awkwardness of a Mr. Darcy. Yes, please. That's chef's kiss. I didn't want to mislead the romantasy reader that was expecting, payoff by, 30% in.
Mm.
Because Edie and Ulrich just stare at each other for months. They share a bed for 9 months without anything happening.
There's a choice.
He's very buttoned up. And she's very like, I don't know what to do with you, because she charms everybody. And he's actually a very kind man, but he is not expressive. And so when she does her song and dance, what's your favorite color? I'm Edie. Nice to meet you. He's like, he's lost. So there's this emotional standoff. Meanwhile, they're both madly in love with each other. So I made the choice not to use the romantasy term because I was worried about misleading the romantic. Occasionally, I would use it in the early days of publishing, but I've gotten farther and farther away. I just had a beautiful banner made for conventions, and it says romantic fantasy standalones with heroines over the age of 35. That's like the little tagline. When I think romantasy, I think 50-50. In my books, I would say there's 40% romance, 40% like fantasy magic. My magic is very practical and
Yeah.
it's very like, I love agricultural stuff. In the last, I just finished Prioress and it's with sensitivity and beta readers now. When it gets to that stage of writing, I'm pretty much done. I'm really only tweaking things here and there for sensitivity and clarification. And that has water divination in it, and the main character can read water and whether water is safe to drink. I mean, this is supposed to take place in like the equivalent of the Middle Ages. They don't exactly have Brita filters. I just love stuff like that. But it's 40% romance, 40% fantasy, and then 20% my personal philosophy. There's sisterhood. There's a lot of political rage. There's a lot of my ideas of what societies should look like. And so it felt wrong to say romantasy. And I did use it in the beginning as a sort of blanket statement, but I got farther and farther and farther and farther away. I'm so sorry. It's such a can of worms answer, but I have done a great deal of thought about
What?
this because
Challenging.
I love because I'm like your girlfriend from the other day. I'm like, I'm sorry for talking. Um, um, what a typical like female thing to do. I'm sorry for talking on a podcast.
Which I want you to talk on.
Oh, damn you, patriarchy. I think that group of people, romance readers, will read anything. They will read queer romance, romance by people of color, featuring people of color. They will read anything under the umbrella. They are adventurous. They give you their attention. They don't care if you're indie. They don't care if you're trad. They will. So I have people all over the world that support me so much, and I can't get over it. And it's because they came to me via the romance and stayed maybe for the other things in my books. I was never going to mislead them. So I think romantic fantasy is better. I don't want somebody to start my books and feel like, I don't think I was sold the right tagline here.
With my last launch, keep in mind that I do write super niche. I was chatting to some of my readers, and they were new to me. This was the first book of mine that they read because there was a bit of a mixed reaction to my last launch because I found the wrong crowd. So that's on me. Like, that's fine.
That happens.
Yeah, that's fine. But the readers that loved it, I asked them the question of what stood out to you. And I wanted to understand what did I do right so I could, replicate more of that. And they basically said what you've been saying there is that I delivered on the things that I said I was going to deliver. So I never promised it to be a romantasy. I promised my Dexter Criminal Minds comp. That was my thing. And I delivered that and then some. And I was like, oh, and they were like, yeah, we understand that everyone wants to do the enemies to lovers, the romantasy, but when we read it and then it doesn't end up being that, you're actually just pissing us off at the end of the day. And I was like, oh shit, so I'm actually doing the right thing here. Like, okay, I'm going to keep doing more of that. And I think that's so important because a lot of these readers have stuck with me through multiple books and they know that I'm big on my word. And I think we sometimes lose sight of that in trying to chase all these numbers. I do want to go back to that water divination comment because I think that is the fucking coolest thing in the world. I haven't seen that in a fantasy in a very long time.
It's Priestess. This is a standalone. Pilgrimess just came out. This is a standalone. And then Illuminator is a companion to Priestess. So you really, it's not a standalone, but it's also not quite a novella. It's a bit long. I called it a novella, and several of my writer friends were like, Kara, it's a book. But the third one, that's another standalone that can just be picked up prior is, that's my favorite. I cannot, it's coming, I'm going to put it out, I think in November this year. Oh, I'm obsessed with it. It's my favorite. I love all these so much, but Prioress is my favorite. And the water divination thing was really fun to play with.
I do want to chat about your audiobook deal because, first of all, congratulations. That is a huge fucking deal. Like, I have a little bit of insight of like what we need to go through to get to that point. But I realize that not everyone else may understand. It's not just something that magically happens. There's a lot of
No.
work that goes into this behind the scenes. What can you tell us about this process that readers or listeners may not be aware of?
There's a lot of different ways to go about getting an audiobook as an independent author. And I like to point that out to people. I have, again, Mr. Beaned my way into getting a literary agent. And but these books are, maybe a little bit too, they've had a lovely success, but they're not massively successful. There was not much of an option for like a jump to trad with a print deal, but she said let's shoot for an audiobook, and she did, and she got me a lovely 4-book deal with Podium Entertainment, who's a great company to work with. They actually really care about stuff like the pronunciation of your made-up names and the identity of your character and the gender identity of your character. I mean, just really, really thoughtful. She said, I'm going to pitch this to get a traditional audiobook deal. We had a couple bids from a couple different publishers, and Podium just really came through with me as a very generous offer with a great deal of freedom. I had narrator approval, and so we went with that. But I just want to, if you're a writer and you're listening, you can pitch directly without an agent to Podium, Dreamscape, Tantor, Blue Nose. Those are all audiobook publishers. So you don't need a literary agent. Now, she got a very nice, I feel, it was a very nice deal with, like I said, with a lot of freedom. And I felt really comfortable with this company. And they've been great to work with. But there's that. There's also, I'm sure you're aware of this, but to anybody listening, there's also this platform, and I want to say ACX, but I don't know if that's the name,
Yes.
where you can, am I right?
Yes.
Where you can partner with a narrator and you guys do like a profit sharing thing. So there's all avenues to doing this. I'm very lucky to have the avenue that I have. I'm such a goofball. And the things that I do by accident, I find like I laugh harder at myself than anybody else. So this is a typical Kara story. So when she first pitched them, she pitched them priestess, pilgrimess, and prioress. And they did not want illuminator. They were like, there's not a lot of a market for like a companion novel. I'm not sure what happened, but they changed their minds. And they had got me this lovely, lovely narrator who I wish I could tell you her real name, because she's got some New York Times bestsellers under her belt. But she does use a pseudonym for me because apparently, even though I'm newer to romance, my spice is spicy enough for her to use her pseudonym. Fabulous voice. Oh my God. If you're a video gamer, a lot of people say that they think she does voices for Baldur's Gate. She has so much range. I have a big cast of characters, and I needed a woman that was going to be able to do a lot of men, going to be able to do a lot of different ages of women. And Edie, and Edie is very like, she's 38, she's lived a life, she's not this breathy, hi, whatever. She's got gravity. She's really fun and bubbly, but she's also, she's got weight to her. So I picked Olivia Thompson. She's fabulous. Oh my God, the audio is wonderful. So they couldn't book her for Illuminator because they wanted to put Illuminator out before Pilgrimess. And so they said, we went back to your wish list cast, because I gave them my wish list. They said, we'll try. They were like, we'll try to get you as close to this. So they came back and they gave me 2 names off of that wish list for Illuminator. And I pretty much only read via audiobook. So I wept at this email. I was like, how am I going to choose between, they gave me Imogen Church, who I love thrillers, Ruth Ware. She wrote The Woman in Cabin 10. I love Imogen Church is one of my favorite voices, but I was like, you know what? I got to go with my fantasy girl, got to go for the readers. And they gave me Zura Johnson, who
I do know her.
Velvet voice. She's done all these fabulous whatever. And she's also a fantastic human being. And so she did Helena's stories for Illuminator. And I'm crying. I'm visiting my aunt. I go, this is such a dream come true. And she goes, well, who was on your wish list? Stephanie, I only know these names as audiobook narrators. Okay. So I read her the 10 people, and she goes, Leslie Manville. And I went, yeah, she has a great voice. She goes, Kara, she's been nominated for a BAFTA 3 times and an Oscar. I said, really? She goes, yeah. One of the movies she just did is the movie that Daniel Day-Lewis said was going to be his retirement movie. I went, oh my God, that's so embarrassing that I asked for an Oscar nominee. Oh, well, I didn't know. I only knew her as an audiobook narrator. Okay, I'm all excited. I get on the plane. I was visiting my aunt. My husband picks me up from the airport. I go, guess what? I have to choose between two amazing. I can't believe it. What a great dilemma, you know? And he goes, well, who was on your wish list? So I read him the wish list, and he goes, Kara, Vanessa Kirby is Sue Storm in the new Fantastic Four movie with Pedro Pascal. I said, really? He goes, yeah, Kara, you asked for a Marvel actress. I went, I didn't know. I only knew her as an audiobook narrator.
So that is
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being one of the casting people at Podium? Who the hell does this lady think she is?
So what do the kids call it? They call it big dick energy. Okay. I am here for that. I had to put it down for the recording, but I have a goal board, like I call it my cancer goal board, and where I have written down every single delusional goal I can think of that I want to get checked off. Would you like to know one of my delusional goals?
Oh, please.
I want Netflix to pick up one of my books for a series. Don't know
Hey,
how it's going to happen, but
not a pun, but literally stranger things have happened. Like crazy. I have seen teeny tiny little books that only have like 75 reviews on Goodreads or something jump to an adaptation. I mean, there are so many like TV shows that are books that nobody had any idea was a book until a studio was like, "Oh, this seems really." That happens all the time. I actually think that's a reasonable goal.
well, that and the reason why I share that is because I mean, do I think it's slightly hilarious that you asked for a Marvel actress as part of your wish list? Yes. Like I would be lying if I didn't think that was hilarious. But at the same time, you know what you want and you're not willing to settle for anything less. And I think that's fucking admirable. Like, I mean, you briefly touched on this already, but we need to stop apologizing for the things that we want.
Yeah.
We're allowed to go after these things. We're allowed to dream big.
The podium literally said it was a wish list, but it was also, they literally said, you know, ask for whoever you want. We may be able to get that person
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
And so I just asked because I was like, whatever. But I didn't know that these women also acted.
I do have to ask you one of my favorite questions in the episode. What's your bookish hot take? Dun dun dun.
Ooh. What is it? Here's my bookish hot take for authors. I'm at a point now where I haven't read it. The last book I read was Daggermouth because I was H.M. Wolf's Q&A partner for her release party, and I was going to read it anyway, but I was like, this book is like, it's the book, I'm sorry, it came out in 2025, but it is the book of 2026. It just is. I am so honored to be her agency sibling, and she was my Q&A partner for Pilgrimess. I mean, I talk about sending the elevator back down, but that's the last book I read was in December. I'm just not a reader anymore. I just write. All I do is write. And then when I do read, I listen to my audiobooks just to kind of keep me in the zone when I was writing Prioress. Okay, so my bookish hot take for writers is we all need to reframe what success is. I think that it is a massive success that somebody in Australia has read my work. That alone is a huge success. And when you start to say, oh, isn't it magical that somebody in Germany has read my work? Or isn't it magical that I'm holding fucking physical copies of my books, that I wrote these books? Then everything else starts to look a lot brighter. We hold ourselves to capitalist ideologies of what is success. Now, don't get me wrong. My goals are, just like you said, goals. A lot of our goals are capitalist goals, i.e., getting picked up for Netflix. I mean, that is a success. That is a financial and platform oriented success. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also a success that 20 minutes ago you were able to pull two books off the shelf and be like, these are my books. And I struggle every single day with this. I see authors expand beyond me in leaps and bounds. I have moments of jealousy That's normal. I'm a human. But if I orient myself back to a default stance of it is amazing that I'm doing what I'm doing, that is the fact that I get up every single day and consider myself a writer, move forward in faith, cross my fingers, move forward towards that goal. That in itself is the success, is moving towards the success. The journey in itself is a success. That is your work will be better, your outlook will be happier. I think all of these emotions around the ideals that we hold, we all want to be on the USA Today bestseller list. I think they're normal, natural, there's nothing wrong with that. Those goals are totally fine. But reframe what success is and looks like and allow that picture frame to include more than just a number on a list, and you will be happier.
Cool. So I
That's
can
my hot
end the
take.
episode now. We're done. We can all go home now. Because I fucking love that in a way that I cannot explain properly to you. See, one of the reasons why I don't write romantasy is just because I think that there are certain standards in that industry that I don't know if I can uphold. And out of respect for the readers, as you're talking about, I'm not going
Absolutely.
to I am not going to insult their intelligence by trying to pretend to be a romantasy author. I know what I am, and I'm going to follow that.
Seen authors pretend romantasy when they have written really, really more of a fantasy,
Yeah.
and it's disappointing. The readers are disappointed,
So I
as
I
they should
write
be.
I write urban fantasy. That is my thing. My whole hook is CW 2010 era. So think your Vampire Diaries, your Gossip Girls, Dexter, Criminal Minds, all of those TV shows. I mean, my next one. I'm
Beloved fandoms too. So many of those
exactly
fandoms are like, yeah, we love that.
exactly like, and my next one. And I swear I came up with this concept before I knew the second movie was going to come out. It's a Devil Wears Prada and Buffy comp. Okay, so
Oh,
I had no idea. I was like, okay, well now I have to release it because of how that worked out. But the point is that I know who I am, and I write urban fantasy. Sure, there are romance subplots, and the Buffy cop that has the most romance I have written to date. I'm still not going to market it as a romantasy though. I could, and I'd probably get a lot of traction if I were to do it that way, but why would I lie about it? And that's where I really resonate with your success thing, because I'm like, I know my readers will come eventually, whether it's now, whether it's in 2 years' time. I just need to have patience and stay true
yeah.
to who I am. The funny thing, I was saying to my one author friend recently, I released The Rule of the Damned in 2024. Okay. It's picking up traction now. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh,
And
that's
I'm like,
lovely.
I'm not even trying. I'm just like, oh, here's an odd reel, here's a tropes post. Yeah, and because I'm now focused on my newest stuff that I'm busy working on, removing this pressure of making royalties, making bestseller lists, the little Amazon tag. Sure, it's nice. I mean, I wouldn't complain, but removing that pressure from myself and just being able to
Mhm.
create art for the sake of creating art because I want to and it makes me happy.
Priestess has something like 5 million KENP. And somebody was like, oh, how did you get that? And I'm like, babe, first 9 months, it had 200,000 KENP, and I thought that was insane. It got posted on Reddit. I did a stuff your Kindle thing, and I made it too long because I Mr. Bean my way. Again, I made it 3 days long, and it got posted on Reddit, and people kept commenting, it's still free, it's still free, it's still free, and it blew up. And then I had, last year was the Priestess banner year. I got an agent, I got audiobook deals, I had Allie Hazelwood read it, and I always tell people that I'm like, it's sat like that. And maybe I had like 10 readers a month, and I thought that was crazy. So I kind of got a big head, and I was like, well, I need to recreate this, and I need to, and I do, I'm a emotive lunatic, and I, oscillate. But if I find that center of art, the craft coming first, I did an art residency for painting last year at Ghost Ranch, where Georgia O'Keeffe spent the last years of her life. And I meditate a lot. And I was in the studio and I was painting, and I was kind of meditating and painting at the same time. And I went outside and I'm like looking at the beautiful red rocks, and I And I ran back to the studio and I found the one pen. I had a million paintbrushes, but I only
Yeah.
had one pen. And I was like, and I had the only paper I had was watercolor. So I was going like this and I wrote "The craft comes first." I have deviated from that. I have backslid. I have failed that creed. But if I try and do "The craft comes first," I am happier.
You've mentioned now a few times in the episode about your art. You've also got a coloring book. So it's the reminder for the listeners that you're not just an author, you're a designer as well. Now, I have personally seen a bit of an upward trend in adult coloring books. What are your thoughts on this?
This book came out of the blue. So my publisher, for the coloring book, the Ulysses Press, they actually do a romanticy coloring book that is lovely. I can't remember who the artist is, but they basically called me out of the blue, or they emailed me and they said, we'd love to set up a phone call with you in like late 2024. And I was like, what? Okay. And then they sell their distribution to Simon and Schuster, and then that's why you can see a Ulysses Press book in like Barnes and Noble, Target, Books a Million, that kind of thing. They call me and they say, we're going to start a new series of coloring books about the United States, and each coloring book will feature feature a state and the landmarks and landscapes and history of the state, but it will be illustrated by an artist that lives in that state. I'm not from Florida, but I've been here for 15 years and I'm a watercolorist. And now I call myself an illustrator too, but I was like, I paint watercolor. I don't do heavy line work. And they were like, we really just like the whimsy that you do. Octopuses reading and that kind of thing. They just said, well, we just kind of want that whimsy. We want it to be fun. And I was like, okay, it's a paid gig. It took me about a year to do all of those illustrations. And it was a huge learning curve. But I think, in answer to your question, reason that it's art in general, whether it is visual, audible, anything, art relaxes the mind. Most art, even heavy metal music, brings a certain sense of self. Like it recenters ourselves. Art brings us back to this sort of like childlike wonder, whether we're at a museum, whether we're at a punk show or what have you, in the movie theaters, at home watching a Netflix series. And I think when you make art, that there's that's like an exacerbation of that sense of self. And during COVID, so many of us were losing our minds, and coloring and puzzles and that kind of thing really helped a lot of people. Art therapy is huge. They've done studies that like people with depression and anxiety, their sense of contentment and peace increases by like 30 to 40% doing art. And I think the active hand,
Yeah.
that is immeasurable. So that's what adult coloring is. And all the illustrations that I did are very complex. They're supposed to take a lot of time to do. And so I think that's the appeal. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, what? But I paint. I would see them in the bookstores or in the craft stores, and I'd be like, well, that's cool. There were 60 illustrations, and I would turn them in sometimes, and the editors would go, we don't want this. We want you to start over.
Oh,
So like we were talking about earlier about criticism as an artist, like
for a second, I have personally seen a bit of an uptick in the way authors are engaging with designers. I'm talking about both cover designers and illustrators for character art. I just had an interaction with my designer the other day. Beautiful illustration, like no notes, 10 out of 10. But the color application wasn't working for me. But I was kind of apologizing for asking for it to be fixed, and she actually had to turn around and be like, "You've literally paid me to do this. You're not being unreasonable." She's like, "I am asking you for feedback, which you provide.
Yeah.
That's how this works." I had one artist friend being told, "I fucking hate it, word for words." And I'm just like, you don't speak to anyone like that, never mind an artist. Yeah. You're able to go, you know what? I'm not sure that this is hitting the mark for X, Y, and Z reason. There's a much better way to handle feedback. So what are your thoughts? Are you seeing this as well on your side as an artist? Or like, why do you think the change is?
I love all of your questions today. I feel like I get to take all my shower conversations with myself and have them with a real live human. And it's just so thank you for every single question. I have a very unique perspective because because I am an author and I am an artist who now does character art. I love doing character art. It is so fun, and I do all my own character art. I
Yeah.
am an indie author who uses character art to sell and market her work, as well as an artist who is paid money to do character art. When I do character art for somebody, I do a heavy line work Art Nouveau style. So it's a two-step thing. We do the line work. We get the line work exactly where they want it, and then we color. Authors tend to be really good communicators. I will say, so that's my first, it's a twofold answer. My first thing is it's a joy, and I do take it very seriously when I am doing character art. This is not my intellectual property. I am a tool. I
Yeah.
am a microwave. You are putting the idea in and pressing,
Yeah.
30 seconds or popcorn or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and I'm going to make this for you. It is not about me. I'm bringing a style to it, but it's not about me. So if character artists are, if you're an aspiring character artist, your ego must go out the door. This isn't about you. You can bring your style to it. I love to suggest elements. I love to say, hey, I always say, Google Art Nouveau, Google Alphonse Mucha, see what comes up. Let's do, instead of just a scene, let's do a beautiful moon phase
Yeah.
illustration behind them or something.
Yeah.
The second thing is there's a lot of people that are new to the art world as indie authors, and they don't know how to talk to artists. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But these are people. This isn't, you're not ordering from Amazon. It sounds like what you're witnessing is a lack of respect or
Yeah.
a sense of entitlement. And that's
Yeah.
kind of sad because it's actually a beautiful, when you listen to the author and they give you, feedback, and you get to make something together. So there really should be a tremendous mutual respect.
If you had to name one other fantasy book that you would love to see get more love from the community, which one would it be?
Can I cheat and say two?
You can, definitely.
Can I cheat and say three? My friend AMK, her first book in the series is called Bones of the Bellators. If you like adventure and Indiana Jones, go for it. I'm also going to say a book that I blurbed called Sun, Moon, and Shadow by Lauren Koffler, Koffler.
Yes, I've seen follow. Yes, and she was on my other friend's podcast. Okay, yes, sorry. Yes,
And
got
my
it.
name is on the cover. I blurbed it. My name is on the cover. No big deal. Um, I just love her book. I'll just leave you with the notes. Frost Daddy instead of Shadow Daddy.
Love that.
He's my book boyfriend. You can't have him. So Sun, Moon, and Shadow by Lauren Koffler.
Yeah.
Also, I love young adults, and I think that there's so much beauty in young adult. My friend Melanie Van Donk, she
Mhm.
wrote a phenomenal book called Shadow of the Four. It's gorgeous. It's a coming of age story. It is young adult. It has a sort of it starts out in this sort of like cloistered monastery type place. This protagonist is, I can't say the protagonist's name because she goes by, they call her Girl. She doesn't have a name, and she is this kind of unloved character, and she moves forward and discovers things about the world around her as she comes of age and learns magic and it's a meditation on grief. It's a meditation on aging, like early, like growing up and not being a kid anymore. And it's gorgeous. And I wish when I finished the book, it's called Shadow of the Four. I wished I could go back and give it to my 16-year-old self. It's phenomenal.
We've spoken about a lot of things that you're busy working on. What can we expect to see next from the world of Cara Reynolds?
Very timely question. So I have something called Secret Project. A lot of people think that's the title of it, and I've actually toyed. My friend Melanie Van Donk that I just mentioned, she's like, you should just call it Secret Project, just because you've been calling it Secret Project. I don't know what is going to happen with that book, but it is done, and it is different. It is a contemporary romance, but it's a noir. It's quirky. It's a thriller. I think it's really funny. I think it's
Yeah.
really sexy, and I think it's really exciting. It takes place in a small touristy Florida town that also has like a Salem, Massachusetts, Roswell, New Mexico feel. There's all this like quirky true crime and cryptids and stuff, and it's supposed to be the first first in a series. It's done, and I can't really speak on what is going to happen with it yet, but it is done. And in the meantime, as I move forward with publish, I was like, I need a project. Like, I wrote 2 books already this year. I'm a very fast writer. I'm like, I need another project. So I have a poll going on my Instagram right now. Either orc romantasy that's like very like swoon worthy, and that would be a romantasy. That
Yeah.
would be I would call that a romantasy. The story is very heavily rooted in the love story. Or I have like an Ocean's 11 heist, hijinks,
I've
alien
voted for
romance
that.
that I'd like to do. So
I've voted for that.
I'm wait, you voted?
I voted for the Ocean's 11.
Oh,
I
okay.
love
I
that.
can't make it. They're both really fun, and I think they would both be beautiful projects to work on. So that is what's next. I just in a couple hours I'll see what people vote. I mean, I literally like I wrote Illuminator because I put it on my stories, and I was like, what if I wrote a companion to Priestess? Because I was never going to write another book again. Priestess was my, like, get it out of my system. And I woke up to a ton of DMs like, you better write this book. I will do what people on Instagram tell me to do.
I was also going to only write one series, and here we are a few years later, where I have multiple books on my shelves. And one of the cover designers I use, she asked me the other day, she's like, "How many books are you planning?" And I'm like, I'm kind of going with a Mean Girls answer here. The sky's the limit, to infinity. I like to think of myself as a Pokemon collector. I like to collect my book covers so that when inspiration strikes, I can just be like, well, Cara, if a listener they're listening to this episode, they're vibing with you, they want to get to know you more, what is the best way that they can connect with you?
I'm very active on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. I have Art by Kara Voorhees, which is my art account, and I use my full, like, I don't know why I chose to do this. I guess I thought Kara Reynolds was boring, so I go by I go by Kara Voorhees Reynolds as an artist. So Art by Kara Voorhees on Instagram, or Kara Needs to Read for my author account. I'm very active on both of them, but more so my author account anymore. So Instagram, I don't have a newsletter. I have a Substack. I've never used it. I spend my time making. I have so much respect for creators that do the newsletters and do all the social media. It's fabulous. I love it. But right now I'm just in a high creative space. I'm just writing and doing more than, and I'm got a lot of conventions and stuff coming up. Instagram is probably the best one.
And if a reader wants to support you, what is the best way to do that?
Oh, that's so nice. Tell a friend. Just tell a friend.
Okay,
Just say like, oh, hey, this girl seems cool.
I think a lot of people underestimate how word of mouth is still our most strongest form of marketing these days. I read a stat somewhere once. So America does still dominate the fantasy genre, even though we have like Australia coming up in the ranks. America is still number one. They cannot give you an accurate stat of how many fantasy authors there are, but they guesstimate in the 2 million range. So and that's just fantasy authors. I'm not even talking about other genres right now. To stand out in the very oversaturated genre as an author, like, guys, word of mouth, don't underestimate it. It is so fucking powerful.
I really try not to make this my entire personality, but I am obsessed with the fact that Allie Hazelwood blurbed Priestess. Read my book because of word of mouth. I bought Priestess on a whim because someone had recommended it to me.
Drops mic, exits the chat. That
word of mouth is beautiful, and it's free.
Cara, I have loved getting to speak to you. You are such a fucking joy. Please never
back at you. This was delightful.
Oh,
this was delightful.
I can't wait for people to see this episode. And as we're talking, I made a note. I think I need to go buy a Priestess to be on that shelf now. So I'm going to go sort that out.
Oh, it's very pretty. The spines are beautiful.
I'm busy building my shelf and all my sprayed edges and everything there. So yeah, I think Priestess needs her spot as well.